Let's start with the 1-minute introduction, and I will start with Mr. Bush here on my closest side, the left side. Will you please introduce yourself? Each one of you will have 1 minute to do so. Thank you.
First of all, thank you all so much for having us here. Thank you so much for being pastors and faith leaders in this community. I think that our faith community has the power to change not just our region and our community, but our world. And you guys are leaders in that movement. So my name is Pierce Bush. I was born in Colorado, but moved to this area when I was 4 years old. I have been the CEO of the largest one-to-one mentoring agency in the country, Big Brothers Big Sisters Lone Star. Before I was the leader of that agency, I was in finance, and before that I was in renewable energy. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about our faith journey as part of the first question, so I'll save some of that for the 2 minutes I have then. But really, it's just an honor to be here. My wife, Sarah Beth Bush, is here. Anyways, we prayed a lot about making this decision, and it's the right decision. It's part of my Christian faith to try to serve our community. So my time is up, so I'll save some of the journey for the next question.
Thank you so much, Mr. Hill. Your 1 minute introduction.
Yep, thank you. Yeah, I echo those same sentiments. I appreciate you all putting this on for us. I think it's like our 8th candidate forum, and it's always nice to have these things to get out in front of everybody and so you can see all the candidates. But I'm a former U.S. Border Patrol agent. I also taught some high school Spanish, 3-term Pearland City Council and Mayor Pro Tem, Associate Municipal Court Judge for the City of Alvin, prosecuted for several cities throughout the district, Sugar Land, Friendswood, even Liverpool, Spring Valley, a little bit beyond. I ran for judge for all of Brazoria County and got elected in 2018, and I've been serving as County Court of Law number 1 and probate court for Brazoria County. I just came off the bench October the 1st to run full-time for this seat, and that was a tough decision, kind of comparable to what Pierce was saying with respect to him and Sarah Beth praying. My wife and I prayed for 3 weeks along with our children as to whether or not we should do it. It would have been easier for me to stay on the bench because I don't have an income anymore, and I'm just passionate about doing this and depleting our savings. But I just want to make y'all proud and just want to humbly serve. So I appreciate y'all being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And Mr. Reddy?
Hello, good morning. I'm very thankful for everyone for coming here, and very thankful to Texas Pastor Council. My name is Banga Reddy. I'm a conservative Texan living here for last 8 years when I moved from India 28 years ago. Myself, my Manjula Alluri, and I have 2 daughters, Divya and Yashodhara, both go to high school. We are very happy to be conservative, and since from the childhood we are promoting the cultural activities and the spiritual activities, and we believe in faith and we believe in the conservative values. I am here today because of the values that we inculcated. The hard work and believe in God has made us proud and very happy to represent Texas District 22. I'm an engineer by profession and have good experience in information technology, worked on many nonprofit organizations, and I was at ground zero for especially focusing on Hurricane Harvey and many other.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Appreciate it.
God bless America.
We will now go into our questioning, and a reminder, 2 minutes for each question, and we'll do this in a rotation style, so the candidate that starts answering the question is not always the same candidate. And we'll start with Mr. Bush. The first question is, describe your personal faith experience, story or testimony. Include comments about First Amendment rights of free exercise of religion.
So, and those are 2 interesting things to back. I definitely want to talk a lot about the First Amendment right. It's really important to me, but I want to for sure start with my faith journey. So I grew up here, like I said, going to St. Martin's Church, where my grandparents' funerals were this past couple years. So I grew up Episcopalian. I, like a lot of kids, kind of stopped going to church when I was in college. And I came back to Houston, didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And I used to go and work out on my dad's membership at the Houstonian Club, where, as God's fate would have it, God's hand, I met a man named Chris C. in the steam room, butt naked, okay? And Chris is the pastor of a great church called Ecclesia, and I just became friends with him. And he just struck me as such an interesting guy, and he said, you should come check out our church sometime. So I did, and I started going to Ecclesia. Around that same time, I signed up to be a volunteer in Big Brothers Big Sisters, way before I worked there. And I remember the second time I went to Ecclesia, right after I had signed up, Pastor Chris said, how can we, in this amazing city, in this region, when there's thousands of kids that are fatherless, how can we as a people in this church not do anything about that? There's guardians who have raised their hand and said, my kid can use a positive role model. And I could just, it's one of those moments where you feel God. And he said, this is your home, Pierce. And Ecclesia has changed my life. Big Brothers Big Sisters changed my life. Through Big Brothers Big Sisters, about 5 years later, I got introduced to an amazing woman named Sarah Beth Bush, now Sarah Beth Melton at the time. She was a big sister. On our first date, I said, where do you go to church? She said, I go to Ecclesia. I said, what time? She said, 11. I said, no way, I go at 11. And so.
Thank you. Your time is up. Please
I'll
finish.
continue.
Please finish.
Okay. Now that, we got two, okay. People aren't here. We got more time. And so I just can't, as I've become more into my faith, I'm not a perfect person. I don't think any of us are. But my relationship with Jesus has told me that we live in such a broken world. And through the power of relationship, you could break down walls. People can understand each other. That's the mission of Big Brothers Big Sisters. What I love most about Big Brothers Big Sisters.
Thank you, Mr. Bush.
Okay, I'll finish
Thank
that
you
later.
so much.
I'll finish that in another question.
I'm sure. Mr. Hill, same question, please.
All right. Yeah, Pierce is right. None of us are perfect, and thank God for the covenant of grace. It's not a covenant of works, and that's what's crucial here. And I'll get into that in a second. But let me just tell you, as it relates to the First Amendment, obviously the First Amendment gives us a freedom to exercise religion and then the pursuit thereof. And so it's very important. As a mature Christian, you know that it's best that we are, as a nation founded on Christian ideals and principles. And you would want that even in another religion, because it's the mature Christian that understands you don't force feed Christianity down someone's throat. That means that you're going to be able to practice whatever religion you choose in America. And that should be our fundamental starting point, because it's a guiding light, those of us that know Jesus Christ is our personal Savior, and we can live our life by example. Those folks will turn to us and say, man, they're different. Why is that? Then that's an opportunity to witness, and we can love everybody and take them in. This is a great question for me, because I was born and raised in Friendswood, and my family moved into Friendswood in 1976. I was born in the old Southeast Memorial in 1970 off Belfort and Park Place, and went to Berean, I think it was Berean Baptist or Berean Christian Church as a young boy. Then we went to Sagemont Baptist Church, Pastor John Morgan, now at Sagemont Church. When I was 9 or 10 years old, I'm not sure, it was 79 or 80, I used to ride my bicycle to the local 7-Eleven to get candy. I'd mow yards and save all my money and blow it all on candy. And I was riding my bicycle one day, and I don't know if it was 79, and this lady pops out, and now I know it was on Forest Bend Avenue, and she says, hey, listen, come on inside, we've got cookies and Kool-Aid. And so I know that sounds creepy, but back then it was a different time. I went inside, and she was witnessing to 9 and 10-year-old girls and boys. And there was an easel at the front of the room, and she threw up the felt Jesus figurine with a black heart. And she said, if you want to invite Jesus Christ into your heart as your personal Lord and Savior, you must, seek redemption, confess your sins, be forgiven. And then she threw up the white heart. He's going to sweep your heart clean. That appealed to me. I accepted Jesus Christ into my heart as a young boy at 9 or 10. Went back, played some football in the streets with my friends, wanted to tell them about God. Well, then this past weekend or two, I was I don't know if it was last weekend or the weekend before, I was block walking in Friendswood, and I came up on that same house. And I wasn't sure, but the brain's funny. I recognized it. I knocked on the door. It's Marge Henderson. She opened the door, and I go through my spiel about block walking, and then she stops me and says, are you a Christian? I said, well, as a matter of fact, I am. There was a lady somewhere, and I didn't want to be presumptuous, and I told her the story. And she stopped me, and she said that lady was me. So we started crying. I was crying on her door. She's crying. I'm hugging her. I'm going to church with her next Sunday. Not this Sunday, we're going to our church, but next Sunday we're going to Heritage Park Baptist Church. It's just so crazy that 40 years ago, I'm getting saved in that house, and now I'm knocking on the door and I'm running for U.S. Congress.
Great.
So God is fantastic.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for such a wonderful testimony from both of you. And I just been given authority to be a little bit more flexible. It looks like we will have more time, so that's wonderful to know. We'll have to be a little bit more flexible than 2 minutes. We'll go to Mr. Reddy with the same question.
Thank you. So my life experience, I am here because of God, I believe, because it's not just I have the experience every day I live within God. And I believe that whatever I'm doing today is in service of God. And otherwise, I born to an agricultural family, very poor, like 53 years ago. And there is no way that I could come to this point without having faith or having experiences that I expressed every day of my life. And I started with teaching tutoring from 10th grade and taking care of my family. And then, especially when I'm coming to United States, even it was difficult for me to fill out the tuition fee and sending the tuition. There was one generous donor who helped me to come here, and after that I never looked back. And it was God that is driving me even today. I strongly believe without Him, I would not be serving as your next congressman. And I keep that always in mind, and I never looked back, worked very hard, earned a double master's degree in information technology, and this is, my life itself is a living example. That's why I had to spend all my life working for the people, whoever in need, whether it is immigration issue, whether it is a life issue, whether it is anything to do with non-profit. That's why I served many non-profit organizations. I was the president of GR Educational Trust, which focuses on visually underprivileged and many other aspects. I went to every city in America, met with many people, and every time when I see the happiness, I feel so great about it, what we are doing. And my life experience changed when Hurricane Harvey hit, when I left my job just to focus on that for 4 months on the ground, going one after the other, both in Katy, Sugarland, Pearland, and other places. And I was on ground zero, meeting everybody, supervising both food activities, food distribution, and I was a living example for representing many teams, and it was the faith in God that drives me, and that takes me to the next level. And without me, I'm just His instrument today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Reddy. Great. This completes our first round of the first question, and we will now go to the second question. As mentioned before, we'll be doing this in rotation, so we'll start with Mr. Hill and then Mr. Reddy and finish with Mr. Butch. The question is, describe your view of the 1973 Roe versus Wade decision, and to what extent abortion should be restricted. Mr. Hill.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yeah, so Roe versus Wade, there was a right to privacy that the courts settled upon. There's no such thing as a right to privacy mentioned throughout the Constitution. So this is a personal story for me as it relates to my view on abortion. Just to answer the question directly as it relates to Roe versus Wade, I think it should be overturned. So that's just, I guess I could yield my time, but let me just go a little bit more. My son, I've got a 12-year-old girl and a 9-year-old boy, and when my son was in my wife's womb at 20 weeks, so I'm 49 today, I'll be 50 this year, and my wife, so back then I was 39, my wife was, I guess, 31, 32, and so we went and 20 weeks, and the ultrasound showed that there were some cysts on his brain, and the doctor explained to us that that's what's called trisomy 18. I'd never heard of it before, so I asked him, well, what does that mean? He said that means your baby boy is going to be born dead, and so, and I don't want to start crying, but that was real tough for us. It wasn't tough for the doctor, and I get it, he sees it all the time, but it was certainly tough for me. It's my baby boy, and I was ready to welcome him into this world, dead or alive, and hug him. And so he was encouraging us to abort. Again, he's the doctor, he's the professional, and I'm sure there's a lot of young people that would listen to the doctor. Why wouldn't you? But I just, as a matter of principle, we weren't going to do that. My wife as well, she's a strong Christian woman. And so We prayed for 9 weeks. He said, come back in 9 weeks, because legally you only have a certain amount of time you got to abort. We knew we weren't going to do it. I think he was kind of frustrated with us, but he said, come back. So we prayed for 9 weeks. We didn't pray for an answer as to whether or not we should abort. We prayed for a miracle. And we went back at 29 weeks, and he even said, it's a miracle. The cysts had resolved themselves. We've got a healthy 9-year-old baby boy that plays select baseball. So I know it's a tough issue for a lot of folks, but for me it's personal. I can't imagine not having my son, and he's completely healthy. So that's my answer on it.
Thank you so much. Mr. Reddy?
Yes, it's a great, real personal story. My eldest daughter was born in 2000, and it was a very difficult experience for us, because I think because every day we were feeling that there could be a miscarriage, and we had to go with good doctors, but finally we had a very healthy baby, very happy. And after that we continued, and then we had miscarriage of 2 children, Neha and Sneha. They are not here, but we tried our best and we never looked back. And both the twins, they are about at the age of 21 months, had a miscarriage, and we tried to the last minute. And then afterwards my wife was kind of in a depression, and because she lost babies, and tried to give so much to her and myself, and everybody tried to give whatever make us happy, but always we think about them. And then doctor suggested that we should never have another baby, but we are trying to see that we need to have at least a companion for my sister. And then one day we took counseling from one of the doctor, and the doctor said that go ahead with faith in God. And we tried, especially we had a baby now. She's 12 years old, so beautiful. She goes to 4 settlements. She's the most smartest girl, and she was born I think about 47 weeks when she was like at least a month early. She was put in an incubator for 2 weeks, and she's very happy, she's going to grow taller than me, and she's the one actually guiding me every time. She is the one corrects me anything that I do, and she is my guide, mentor, even when we are driving, and she's just 12 years old at this point. So I believe that just continue with faith in God. That's the fear that always everybody tries to inculcate in you, but go. And therefore I believe that we have to, from conception to respecting the elderly, we must not go with abortion. So I'm completely against it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll finish with Mr. Bush on that question.
So just to go back to the point, I'm 100% pro-life. I think we need to value all life 100%. I'm very grateful for both of you guys sharing those stories. I've met Greg's son, and he's a great kid, so that's an awesome testimonial. I think what scares me the most is what's going on the liberal side of the aisle right now, where some are advocating that even babies that are born alive during an abortion, should be killed. It's terrible. It's terrible, and it should be illegal. And I think Roe versus Wade should be overturned, because all life is precious, from conception till the end, as Bangor was saying. And I also think this. I'll say this because that's an easy one. I think we're all going to agree on that point. But I think we as a Christian community need to step up. We need to have more people that sign up to mentor kids. We need to have people that, just because a kid might not be born to us, take some ownership, see a kid that has the odds against him and does something about it. We have the ability in this room to change this community and to change our world and to change the world in a real way for people, for kids. And we've got to value every single human life that exists, from conception to the grave. And it should be an easy thing for this group to champion. So I'll yield my time on that.
Great. Thank you so much. We are now going to question number 3, which we will start with Mr. Reddy and then Mr. Butch and end with Mr. Hill. The question is, do you believe that the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Obergefell versus Hodges legalizing same-sex marriage makes that a settled issue? And the second part to that question is, what is your view about adding sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression to anti-discrimination laws as per the Equality Act? Mr. Reddy?
I'm coming from a very, very conservative family where we always believe in whatever God has given us, we need to go with that. And saying so, if you look at, I came from India, you look at that, there this is not an issue at all. The reason, and here also, this should not be an issue because government should not interfere with the individual's freedom. And saying so, I would strongly believe that we should not encourage the same-sex marriage. It's my strong belief. We need to believe in one man and one woman marriage relationship, and it works good. And I'm not saying that other things that we don't have to explicitly say it, and just live with what we have, and doesn't make a big news about it. And I don't want that to be a political exercise by both parties. It's a non-partisan issue, but let's live with what nature has given us, and let's enjoy this one man, one woman marriage that given by God. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bush, your answer to that question?
Sure. So I think that the Supreme Court, decision has been made. I think the biggest issue that we have facing us as a country is that religious liberties and religious freedoms are under prosecution. I don't think anyone should tell a pastor how to read or interpret the Bible. I do not think that should be dictated from Washington. I think we must protect, as and this kind of alludes to the first question, the First Amendment rights. This is, just so you know, from a political ideological standpoint, I'm a big 10th Amendment guy. I ultimately believe when you try to put people in an ivory tower up in Washington, D.C., and make decisions for people, you take away people's very basic dignity. And I am a big believer that ultimately churches, faith groups, and businesses should make a lot of decisions for their own operations. And so that's kind of where I stand on this issue. I am a big believer in following my relationship with Jesus, and for whatever it's worth, I go to a church that really values loving on people. And I think we as a Christian community have to embrace people that aren't necessarily like us. And I think that that's our calling. I feel very called by Jesus to go out and to love everyone. And I think that's a calling of our Christian church. And I think the Bible is pretty clear on that. And I think Jesus led with love, and we all should too.
Thank you so much. We'll end with Mr. Hill.
All right, I appreciate that. So just to answer the question on the first one, letter A, as to whether or not it's a settled issue, Obergefell, and I don't think it is a settled issue just because the ruling's been made. I mean, if you take a look at and as a former judge, I'll tell you the argument was the Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA, and the court found it unconstitutional because the Defense of Marriage Act defined marriage between a man and a woman that was across the land. And then part of the arguments to find it unconstitutional, they argued the 10th Amendment, and they said the states should be able to decide. So if you're going to have same-sex marriage in Massachusetts, maybe you're not going to have it in Texas if the states decide, because it should be left to the states. Then they said, well, no, full faith and credit under the Constitution would prohibit that, because if you get married in one state, it must be recognized in another state under full faith and credit. These are legal arguments, but the ruling, it's unsettled because I believe it's flawed legal argument. You can't argue that the 10th Amendment should not be, in essence what they're saying is full faith and credit trumps the 10th Amendment. I don't believe that's the case. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, as it relates to B, the question there about whether or not my view in adding sexual orientation, gender identity into the Equality Act, I would say no. I mean, there is a push to move us away, as Christians, away from our base and towards secularism. And we should not be pushed to move towards secularism. The argument that we should do this and have sexual orientation and gender identity to legislate secularism it's hypocritical. They would not allow us or want us to legislate Christianity, so we should not be forced to legislate secularism. I think that we need to stand firm on who we are, and I agree with Pierce. We should love. Doesn't mean that you hate someone that might be homosexual. You should love them. Jesus would call us to do so. We're not going to be judgmental with that respect, but we should stand firm on our principles, and I believe that that's what we should do. Yeah.
Great. Appreciate all of your answers. Thank you so much. Question number 4, and we'll go back to the starting order with Mr. Bush going first. The question is, what do you believe is the most important issue facing our nation today that you will make your highest priority?
Since this is a national question, I'll focus it on there because I think you could spot out a few local issues that really matter. But nationally, no doubt about it, I think the rise of socialism that is pervading on across this country, across younger people, is really scary to me. Look, guys, I think we take for granted the fact that we're Americans. I think we take for granted that we live in this region. This congressional district is the most diverse congressional district in the country. It's also the largest because it is a district that is ripe with opportunity. There is no place like the United States of America. This is a place where it doesn't matter, and I'll say this as a Bush, it doesn't matter what your last name is. If you come here, if you have integrity, if you invest in your community, then opportunity awaits you. And there's no place in America that embodies that set of values more than this region. I mean, it even differs from other places in Texas. Let's be honest. I spent some time in North Texas, and it doesn't feel like this. And we have to protect that. We cannot yield on this issue. There are Democrats that will try to tell you that big government can solve all of our country's ills. No, it is individuals and it is faith groups. It is people standing up together without the heavy weight of government telling them where to go that will continue making this country great. And there is no place in the world, I don't care, you could go east or west. We are at ground zero of where conservative ideology creates opportunity that is available to all people. And it's why we have the diverse congressional district that we have. And we need to fight to make sure that opportunity lasts for future generations of Americans. So that's the number one issue that I'll fight for.
Thank you so much. Mr. Hill?
Yep. Thank you. So I think it's the national debt / socialism, and here's why I've got them one and the same. I agree with Pierce, but the national debt is $23 trillion. I had a professor in the late 80s in college who complained about the national debt being $3 trillion, and today it's $23 trillion. And so you've got some of these leaders on the far left that are espousing these things such as Medicare for all, college tuition for all, mandated employment for all, and it's going to be anywhere from $50 trillion to $94 trillion. I just said our national debt is $23 trillion. So it's just not sustainable, and it would break us. And so those are things and ideologies that lead to socialism. If it's not socialism, if it's just semantics, then you're talking about a tax rate that we haven't seen since the days of Jimmy Carter. So that's just something that's just, I believe we need a balanced budget. We have a thing called the National Enforcement of Democracy, and it's NED, and it's $113 billion that we're spending taxpayers' money to spread democracy around the world. I don't think that we should be looking to spread democracy around the world when we're trying to preserve our own here, as it relates to the fact that we're getting overtaken by this socialist push. So to tag on to what Pierce said is the reason why I said /socialism, because he's right. And I remember watching a clip here just a couple weeks ago. Y'all remember the Phil Donahue show, and it was in 1981, and Phil Donahue was interviewing the brand new mayor out of Vermont. I forget which town it was, but it was Bernard Sanders, and the caption was "Socialism in America." And Phil Donahue and then the other lady that were interviewing him, they kind of laughed it off and said, really, I mean, that's not going to really take hold. And the guy's leading in the polls is a Democrat for president. So it's a huge issue. I mean, it's scary to me. It makes me think, where are we going to immigrate to if, in fact, the socialists win? It's a fundamental shift and change of who we are as America. And you talk about Christianity. Take a look at all your socialist country. I mean, you aren't going to be able to worship. I mean, it's just crazy. Sometimes I get angry, so I'm going to stop now. But anyway, but thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, Mr. Hill. Mr. Reddy.
Yes, my single most concern that bothers me is the socialism. And I coming from a socialist country, and I exactly lived through it, and I know how it feels like. You will be offered like you have everything, but end of the day you will have nothing, but you have to stand up on your own and believe in your education, your family values, your conservative things that built in, and the faith in God only brought me here. And it was the socialism that was resisting me or not letting me to do things, and I have to stand upon myself firmly with belief in God. Coming back to, we are at a crossroads. Our core principles are at threat internally. This is most dangerous to country. As a next congressman, I would like to work towards every effort to stop socialism. And I think if it comes from a person like me and can explain to every person, I started a movement called I Love My America, and where I want to tell that my life story itself is a great story coming from a socialist country, to tell everybody that do not even think about it. And this is single most for me because our children, especially youth, are more excited about it, not knowing where they are heading. And if it is irreversible, once they adjust to it, it is very difficult to come back. And this should not be a political agenda. That's why I think all the faith-based organizations should stand up firm. It is everybody's right to go and fight against socialism. And it should not be even a political agenda, to my opinion, but it is at the national level where Bernie Sanders is running only on that, and everything offered free goodies is really national threat, in my opinion. And you have seen every country is adopting greatest American dream of capitalism, whereas we are trying to go back and take the socialism. This is completely insane, and I fight for it. And that is one of the main reasons that I have been running to a public office. I thought the best bet is to run for a public office when you are a wise man, when you are coming. So I request everybody who is highly talented official, nowadays they are not participating in elections, they should come and participate and prove that we are one, and we need to stop Texas turning blue. We need to keep Texas red. That's where it starts. Otherwise, our country is in peril. We must have to stand firm. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Appreciate your answer. Great. We are down to our fifth question, and this is the last question I have before each one of you will have a 1 minute in closing statements. And the fifth question, we will start with Mr. Hill, is your view. Each one of you, will you share your view on border security and immigration reform? Okay. Mr. Hill, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All right. So, yeah, we didn't have number 5 written down, but so as a former U.S. Border Patrol agent, I can speak directly to this, and I joke with people because it's funny, but it's true. The only thing that's changed since I was a Border Patrol agent 25 years ago is my age and my waist size, and that is certainly true. When I married my wife, who's Cajun, I gained 42 pounds almost instantly, but so it's probably not a Border Patrol issue as much as it is my own problem with eating. But no, so we need more boots on the ground. We need more technology. We need more immigration judges to address the fact that you got some asylum hearings or probable cause detention hearings that have been deportation hearings, rather, that have just been pushed along for a year and a half. I can't imagine as a judge if someone came in, I wouldn't, because of the right to a speedy trial, have been able to say, when you come into my court, oh, judge, I need a trial, be it on a civil matter or a criminal matter, and I just say, okay, we'll get to it in a year and a half or 2 years from now. It's just unheard of. So we need to fix that problem. We should streamline legal immigration as it relates to permanent residency. We should fix that problem to incentivize those that come over illegally so they won't do that. And if they know they can get it done in 2 or 3 years, then let's do that. I mean, folks that do it the legal way, they're being penalized. It's taken 7 to 8 years. They have to fill out 6-7 inches of paperwork, pay $7,000, pay taxes. When they see their neighbor paying $2,000 to a coyote, and they come over in a day and they're not paying any taxes, they're putting all the money in their pocket or sending it back home. They're having a baby, and it's a $5 million Medicaid baby. These are issues that we should dive down and really fix. The wall would have been great as a Border Patrol agent, because the areas we've got a wall, it's like a 90 to 92% reduction in illegal immigration, but the wall is not the end-all be-all. It's a comprehensive approach, and it's just really important, because to have just open borders, that would just, again, be the death of our nation. It would take away, folks aren't going to assimilate and learn about the freedoms in America and what we're founded on, and it's going to be the death of us, and they're going to be pushing towards socialism. So it's a very important issue.
Thank you so much. Mr. Reddy, your answer to that question?
Yes. So Border security and immigration are my top priorities if you look at it into it. So one is the border security. The reason I said is I'm coming from, as an engineer and having an IT professional working with many organizations. I would believe that we have to treat border security as a package, not like just building the wall. So therefore, I offered a very comprehensive solution where we need to involve building the wall and then high-tech monitoring where it is required so that we can monitor the drug trafficking and human trafficking that is happening. And the third issue is to increase the staff members. And you know that our IC is at threat sometimes, and it is very difficult to manage within the constants, even our mayors and other officials giving in some of the states. So it is really an important national issue, and it is the duty of the federal government to take care of the border security. And the second, coming to the immigration, and I completely disagree on the illegal immigration pouring into the country that brings a lot of violence, and that is going to change the fabric of our Texas as well as our nation, which is already happening, and we are using it for the political purpose. But I should always work for streamlining the immigration process. Again, be an immigrant by myself. I went through 15 years of process. I can understand the loopholes. I would not let any lobbies to take advantage of it. And I would like to propose rewrite a solution that works for everybody. There is a backlog for some of the people who are working very hard they are standing in the line, and for them it is going to take anywhere from 15 years to 50 years. And it is unacceptable, whereas people who wants to enter through the porous borders, they can come easily and survive. So I would like to streamline the immigration where there should be a fair chance for immigrants who are coming and who are contributing to the United States of America. Constitutionally, they are abiding by the rules and laws. We should embrace them, because this land is land of all immigrants, but they have to live legally. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll go now to Mr. Bush.
So this is a really, really complex issue, and I agree with a lot of the sentiments expressed by the gentleman to my left. I think we've got to secure the border first and foremost. I, in my purview in this community, in this congressional district, have seen thousands of lives shattered by the drug epidemic that destroys good families and good people. I mean, if you want to see the embodiment of evil, look no further than drug and the drug business and how addictive those things are. It's evil incarnate is really what it is. I think I agree with President Trump, by the way. There are some measures the federal government could take to clamp down on the drug traffickers and the human traffickers. The human trafficking is a huge issue in this congressional district. I don't know if you all in your church communities are talking about this issue, but you should be, because it's preventative. If you don't talk about an issue that's affecting real people, nobody can do anything about it. And we got to treat the drug cartels and the human traffickers. President Trump suggested we treat them as terrorist organizations. And that would give the federal government a lot of abilities to stop them. And we've got to stop them. And we have to secure the border because lots of bad things are coming through. In terms of immigration, I want to be very clear. I'm for legal immigration. We are a nation of immigrants, as Bangar said. Our diversity is our strength in this community, in this congressional district in particular. But the system is so broken. And it's not fair, and it's not fair for the taxpayers, by the way. We're training thousands of highly trained doctors and engineers, and when they graduate from our universities, this is our taxpayer money, they can't stay here and work, and so we're training the workforce of other nations. And that's opportunities to cure cancer. We know that American innovation has the power to change the whole world, and we need the brightest to be here, and so we've got to fix our immigration status. Jesus said you should treat our immigrants as honored guests, and we need a legal immigration system that makes sense, because it makes our society richer.
Great, thank you so much for your answer. We are now to our 1-minute closing statements. Before we go to that, and we are going to start with Mr. Reddy and that 1-minute closing statement, and Mr. Bush, and finish with Mr. Hill. I'd just like to once again say thank you to each and every one of you for your time of being here today, your service, and your willingness to make a difference in our community and in our nation. We will start now with our 1-minute closing statement. Mr. Reddy.
Thank you everyone for coming today, and especially to Texas Pastor Council members here. And my name is Bangareddy, and I'm running for your next congressman. And we are at a peril right now that we need to keep Texas red. In order to keep Texas red, this district has to stay red, and socialism is pervading Texas, so we need to stop. So I'm working on 3 issues: border security and immigration. Number 2 is national debt and a budget deficit, and number 3 is the basically infrastructure and also the flood mitigation. Being an engineer, worked with the people on the ground, I am fully aware of all 3 issues, and I can fully aware of writing the bills and making sure that work with on those top 3 issues. And I request you to go and vote for me. I request you to consider to earn vote. Your vote is giving 2 votes to me because I'm the person here who can defeat our democratic opponent, and therefore I request you to go and get more information at readyforcongress.com. Thank you, and God bless America.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Mr. Bush, your 1-minute closing statement.
Sure. Again, thank you all so much for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here. Thank you for being the hands and feet of Jesus Christ on this earth and your pastoral leadership. A little while ago, I was sitting in church, and Pastor Chris C., who, by the way, I bother for describing exactly how I met him in the introduction. I hope you'll give me some grace on that. Maybe not tell him he's actually in Israel. So, but it's a true story. But he was talking about Micah 6:8 and how God ordered the Israelites to act justly, to love mercy, to walk humbly with your God. I aspire to live to that order. Through this, I think the opportunity to serve one's country is driven by my Christian faith. God and Jesus are the most important things in my life, then my wife and my family and community, etc. But I'm driven to make a difference. I can promise you that if I don't feel like I'm making a difference, I'll be the shortest-term congressperson you've ever seen. We need people that are serious about creating real change and helping real people's lives and standing for values that make this community the amazing community that it is and the amazing community that it can be. So thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bush.
Thank you. I like that you said Micah 3:6-8 because that was one of my favorite verses as a judge. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with your God? And I had that up there on my bench. So one of the verses that has been with me this entire campaign, because when I prayed as to whether or not I should do this, and I felt God had opened the door, I said, yes, I'll do it. And then when I come off the bench and I don't have an income, I thought, well, God, you've opened the door, I've walked in it, you sent me to an empty table. How am I going to do this? And so one of the verses he sent me was 1 John 5. It's one of these deals where, and I'm human, and I tried to test him, and I said, send me a verse. I opened the Bible, and oftentimes it's crickets, but this time it spoke to me, and it was 1 John 5:14-15, basically saying, look, if you pray and it's in my will, I hear you. You just must have faith. And that's been my go-to verse. I've had several people, oddly enough, text me that don't even know each other saying, hey, just thought about you this morning. This is a verse that I came upon. And it's just random over probably like 15 times. So I'm the only candidate in this race that's actually balanced the budget, cut taxes, prioritized spending. I've got that elected legislative experience. This is a job application. I just urge you to look at all the candidates, and I just want to humbly make you all proud. Happiness comes from that which gives you eternal purpose. You know what I'm talking about, and I know that my eternal purpose is not necessarily serving Congress, it's serving you. And whatever capacity I can do it, that's what I want to do. Thank you.
Again, thank you. Let's give them a clap offering for their wonderful answers to the questions. I'll turn it over now to our president of the Texas Pastors Council, Reverend Dave Welch.